There is a town in America that was, per capita, the wealthiest community in the entire country. Not the wealthiest small town, not the wealthiest town in its state, the wealthiest per capita in America. It had a stock exchange, an opera house, banks with marble floors imported from Europe, millionaires on every block. Today it has fewer than 200 people in the ruins of buildings that cost more to construct than most cities of its size could afford. This is not a story about poverty. It is a story about what happens when wealth is built on a single thing. One mine, one railroad, one crop, one moment of demand, and that thing ends. These are the 10 richest towns in America that completely collapsed. And the reason every single one of them fell is the same reason, dressed in different clothes. Number 10, Calico, California. In 1881, silver was discovered in the Calico Mountains of San Bernardino County. Within 4 years, the town that grew around the discovery had 3,500 residents, 22 saloons, a Wells Fargo office, a school, a newspaper, and over 500 mines operating simultaneously in the surrounding hills. At its peak, Calico produced $86 million worth of silver. In 1880s money, the mines ran day and night. The streets were packed with miners, merchants, speculators, and the full ecosystem of a boomtown operating at maximum velocity. Then two things happened simultaneously. The price of silver collapsed in 1896 following the repeal of the Sherman Silver Purchase Act, which had required the federal government to buy silver at fixed prices. When the government stopped buying, the market price fell by more than half overnight. Mines that were profitable the day before were worthless the next morning, and the ore was running thin anyway. Within 5 years of the silver crash, Calico was nearly empty. The buildings were abandoned, the equipment left in the mines, the newspaper stopped printing. The 22 saloons closed one by one until none were left. Walter Knott, the founder of Knott's Berry Farm, purchased the ruins in 1951 and restored them as a tourist attraction. Today, Calico is a county park. The buildings you walk through are reconstructions. The original structures dissolved back into the desert. $86 million in silver. Gone so fast, the town didn't have time to find anything else to be. Number 9, Jerome, Arizona. Jerome sits on the side of Mingus Mountain in Yavapai County, Arizona, at an elevation of 5,000 feet. In the early 20th century, it was known as the wickedest town in the West. It was also one of the richest. The United Verde copper mine beneath Jerome produced enormous quantities of copper, gold, and silver, beginning in the 1880s. By the 1920s, Jerome had 15,000 residents and was the 4th largest city in Arizona. The mine was producing so much copper that the United Verde was considered one of the most valuable mines in the world. The wealth was real and it was visible. Hotels, banks, a hospital built by the mining company, schools, opera performances, the infrastructure of a genuinely prosperous city perched on a mountainside built around a hole in the ground. The copper market collapsed after World War I, recovered, collapsed again during the Depression. The mine changed hands, was worked differently, and continued on reduced terms until Phelps Dodge closed it permanently in 1953. Within a decade, Jerome's population had fallen 15,000 to 50 people in a city built for 15,000. Buildings slid down the mountain, literally, because the mining had destabilized the hillside, and the physical town began moving as well as emptying. Jerome did not stay empty. Artists began arriving in the 1960s, drawn by the cheap real estate and dramatic landscape. Today, Jerome has around 450 residents and a thriving tourist economy built on its ghost town identity. But the city of 15,000 that the 4th largest population in Arizona supported, that city is gone. What remains is a managed ruin with gift shops, which is its own kind of collapse. Number 8. Cripple Creek, Colorado. In 1890, a cowboy named Bob Womack found gold in a cow pasture on the western slope of Pikes Peak. He sold his claim for $500. The men who bought it extracted $6 million from it. Cripple Creek became the last great gold rush camp in American history. By 1900, it had 50,000 people, more than Denver. It had electric lights, a telephone system, an opera house that hosted nationally touring productions, 3 newspapers, and a stock exchange trading shares in over 400 mines. The Cripple Creek district produced $800 million in gold between 1891 and 1961. That is roughly $28 billion in today's money. It was not a small operation. It was one of the most productive gold districts ever discovered in the Western Hemisphere. It also had one of the most violent labor histories in American mining. The Colorado labor wars of 1903 and 1904 brought the National Guard into Cripple Creek. Workers were deported from the district in cattle cars. Union organizers were beaten and imprisoned. The mine owners won. The unions were broken. And the gold ran out anyway. By 1960, the population was under 2,000. The opera house was gone. The stock exchange was gone. The electric lights had been on and off for years. The city that had more people than Denver was quieter than most small farming communities. Colorado legalized limited stakes gambling in Cripple Creek in 1991. Casinos moved in. The historic buildings were converted. Today, Cripple Creek has a different economy built in the bones of the old one. $800 million in gold, a city larger than Denver. And what it became in the end was a place where people feed quarters into slot machines in buildings where gold millionaires once hosted opera. Number 7, Goldfield, Nevada. Goldfield was, for a brief and extraordinary moment in the early 20th century, the largest city in Nevada. Gold was discovered in 1902. By 1906, Goldfield had 30,000 people, a stock exchange, a 3-story hotel with an elevator and a telephone in every room, electric streetcars, and a Tex Rickard-promoted boxing match. Joe Gans versus Battling Nelson, 42 rounds for the World Lightweight Championship that drew journalists from across the country. The Goldfield Consolidated Mine produced $86 million in gold in a period of less than 10 years. The money was real. The city felt permanent. It was not permanent. The ore body was relatively shallow. By 1910, the richest veins were exhausted. A labor dispute in 1907 that brought federal troops to the district damaged the business climate. A fire in 1923 destroyed much of the downtown. A flood in 1913 had already taken out portions of the lower town. By 1920, the population had fallen from 30,000 to under 1,500. By 1940, it was under 500. Today, it is around 300. The 3-story hotel still stands. It is the most intact Edwardian hotel in Nevada, a building of genuine architectural grandeur sitting in a town of 300 people in the middle of a desert. It has been under renovation off and on for decades. It has not been fully operational as a hotel in years. The largest city in Nevada, 30,000 people, a boxing match that made national news. And what remains is a grand hotel that nobody has figured out what to do with. In a desert town that peaked before most of its current residents' grandparents were born. Number 6, Leadville, Colorado. Leadville sits at 10,152 feet above sea level, making it the highest incorporated city in the United States. In the 1880s, that distinction was irrelevant to the men flooding into it because the ground beneath it contained silver in quantities that made altitude an inconvenience worth tolerating. At its peak in 1880, Leadville had 40,000 people and was the second largest city in Colorado after Denver. It produced Horace Tabor, who made $9 million in silver and became one of the most famous men in Colorado. Built an opera house, funded civic improvements, served as lieutenant governor, and eventually lost everything when silver crashed. The Tabor story is Leadville in miniature, made extraordinary by silver, destroyed by the same market forces that made it. The Sherman Silver Purchase Act repeal in 1893, the same legislation that killed Calico, ended the silver economy of Leadville almost overnight. The mines that had been producing continuously since 1877 began closing. The population that had been 40,000 fell toward 5,000 within a decade. Leadville pivoted to lead, zinc, and molybdenum mining and survived in reduced form. Today it has around 2,600 residents. It still has the Tabor Opera House. It still has Victorian architecture that looks out of place at 10,000 feet. It also has one of the most contaminated Superfund sites in Colorado, the California Gulch Superfund site. Legacy of 150 years of mining that left heavy metals in the soil and the Arkansas River at levels that required federal intervention. The second largest city in Colorado, 40,000 people, a Silver Barons Opera House, and a Superfund designation. That is the final chapter of the same story. Number 5, Rhyolite, Nevada. Rhyolite has been mentioned on this channel before, but the full story of its wealth, how concentrated it was, how fast it accumulated, and how completely it disappeared, deserves the full account. In 1904, two prospectors named Shorty Harris and Ed Cross found gold at Bullfrog, Nevada, near Death Valley. Within months, Rhyolite had grown around the discovery. Within 3 years, it had 10,000 people. Not 10,000 miners living in tents, a city. The cook bank was 3 stories of reinforced concrete with Italian marble floors. The train depot served 3 competing railroad lines. There was a school, a hospital, an opera house, a stock exchange, a red light district, 50 saloons, and electric lights powered by a dedicated generating plant. The wealth concentrated in Rhyolite attracted investment from San Francisco, from New York, from European markets. The Bullfrog Mining District was the subject of serious financial analysis by people who knew how to evaluate mining districts. They invested. Then the 1906 San Francisco earthquake triggered a financial panic that pulled capital out of Western mining ventures across the board. And the ore body at Rhyolite, it turned out, was not as deep or as rich as the investment had assumed. By 1908, the banks were failing. By 1911, the population had fallen from 10,000 to 675. By 1920, it was 14. The Cook Bank still stands in the desert. 3 stories of concrete with no roof and no floors, the marble long since stripped. The train depot is maintained as a historic site. A city that went from nothing to 10,000 people to 14 people in 16 years. And the bottle house, 50,000 glass bottles mortared together by a man who had no lumber and no shortage of empty bottles in a town with 50 saloons. Still standing in the desert, the most intact structure in a city that forgot itself faster than it built itself. Number 4, Bodie, California. Bodie's wealth was not quiet. When gold was discovered in 1859 and the rush truly began in 1877, Bodie attracted the kind of population that concentrates wherever extraction is profitable and law is absent. By 1879, it had 10,000 people and was producing millions of dollars in gold and silver annually. It also had, by contemporary accounts, a murder every week, 65 saloons, gambling operations that ran without pause, a red light district that operated openly. A minister who arrived to establish a church wrote home, describing Bodie as a sea of sin lashed by the tempests of lust and passion. He was not exaggerating for effect. He was writing a factual description. The Standard Mine alone made its owners wealthy enough to fund significant investment elsewhere. The money that came out of Bodie funded ventures in San Francisco and Nevada, in real estate across California. And then the ore thinned. The population began leaving in the 1880s. A fire in 1892 destroyed much of the town. Another fire in 1932 finished what the first had started. California acquired the ruins and established a policy of arrested decay. Preserve everything exactly as found, restore nothing, demolish nothing. The buildings of Bodie stand today in the state they were in when the last residents left, maintained at the moment of abandonment. A medicine bottle on a shelf from 1915. A child's shoe in a corner. A safe left open because there was nothing left in it worth closing it for. 10,000 people in 65 saloons and a murder a week, standing perfectly still in the California high desert exactly as it fell. Number 3, Hamilton, Nevada. Hamilton is the one that barely anyone knows and should be more famous than all of them. In 1868, silver was discovered in the White Pine Mountains of Nevada. Hamilton was the town that grew up around it, and for a period of approximately 3 years was one of the most densely populated places in the American West. At its peak in 1869, Hamilton had between 10,000 and 15,000 people. The territory of Nevada sent representatives to Washington based in part on Hamilton's population. Serious newspapers ran serious articles about Hamilton's future as a major Western city. The Wells Fargo office processed enormous quantities of silver. The hotels were full, the streets were crowded. By 1873, it was over. The silver veins were shallow, not the deep, sustained ore bodies that could support a city for decades. Shallow veins that produced intensely and then stopped. Within 5 years of the peak, the mines were largely exhausted. Within 10, Hamilton was a ghost. A fire in 1873 destroyed much of the commercial district. Another fire in 1885 took the rest. By 1887, the county seat had moved elsewhere. By 1900, almost nothing was standing. Today, Hamilton is one of the most completely vanished boomtowns in Nevada. There are foundations, some scattered debris, the outline of a town grid if you know where to look. No preserved buildings, no tourist infrastructure, no managed ruin with a parking lot. Just the desert and the outlines in the earth where 15,000 people lived for 3 years and left nothing behind that the fires and the weather haven't taken. Number 2, Virginia City, Nevada. Virginia City is famous. It has tourism and preserves buildings and a main street that draws visitors from across the country. What is less understood is the scale of what Virginia City actually was at its peak and how far it fell. The Comstock lode, discovered beneath Virginia City in 1859, was the first major silver discovery in American history. It was also one of the richest mineral deposits ever found in the Western Hemisphere. The mines beneath Virginia City produced over $400 million in silver and gold between 1859 and 1878. That is approximately $13 billion in today's money. At its peak in the 1870s, Virginia City had 25,000 people. It had a 4-story hotel with a formal dining room. It had a stock exchange that was second in importance only to the San Francisco Stock Exchange. It had gas lighting, a sophisticated water system, churches, schools, a theater that hosted nationally touring companies. Mark Twain worked as a journalist there. The money that flowed through Virginia City funded the early growth of San Francisco. The Comstock ran deep, but it ran out. By the 1880s, the richest ore was gone. By 1900, the population had fallen from 25,000 to under 3,000. By 1940, it was under 500. What Virginia City has today is its preservation. The Victorian buildings maintained because they became valuable as history when they stopped being valuable as commerce. The tourists walked the same streets where the Comstock millionaires walked. The Stock Exchange building is a museum. 25,000 people, $400 million in silver, the second most important stock exchange in America. And what it became is a very well-preserved reminder of what it was. Number 1, Deadwood, South Dakota. Deadwood should not exist. It was built illegally. The Black Hills of South Dakota were guaranteed to the Lakota Sioux by the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. The U.S. government agreed formally and in writing that the Black Hills were Lakota territory and that no white settlement would be permitted there. Then George Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills in 1874, and his geologists found gold. The government did not honor the treaty. Miners flooded in. Deadwood Gulch became a city of 25,000 people built on land that was not legally available for settlement, producing gold that was not legally available for extraction, operating outside any legal jurisdiction because it was technically on sovereign Lakota land where U.S. territorial law did not apply. That legal vacuum produced the Deadwood that everyone knows. Wild Bill Hickok was shot in the back of the head during a poker game in 1876. Calamity Jane was a real person who lived there. The violence, the gambling, the absence of law were not mythology. They were the direct consequence of a city that existed outside the legal system because it had to. The gold was real. The Homestake Mine, established in Deadwood in 1876 by George Hearst, father of William Randolph Hearst, produced gold continuously until 2002. It is one of the most productive gold mines in American history. The wealth that came out of the Homestake funded the Hearst media empire. But the city of 25,000 that rushed in for that gold, the city built on an illegal settlement outside any law on treaty land the government had promised to protect, fell apart before the mines stopped producing. By 1900, the population had fallen toward 3,000. The famous figures were dead or gone. The lawlessness had been replaced by territorial governance. The mythology was already forming around the reality that had already passed. Deadwood survived as a small city because the Homestake kept producing. It legalized gambling in 1989 and reinvented itself as a tourist destination built on its own legend. But the city that existed in 1876, 25,000 people on illegal ground, no law, a poker game where a man was shot in the back of the head, and the hand he was holding became the most famous hand in card game history. That city was gone almost as fast as it came, built on a broken treaty, fueled by gold, famous for its violence, and what remains is a casino town selling tickets to its own mythology. Every single town on this list collapsed for the same reason, dressed in different clothes. They built everything on one thing, and the one thing ended. The mine ran out. The railroad bypassed them. The price collapsed overnight. The ore was shallower than the investment assumed, and when the one thing ended, there was nothing underneath it. 10 towns, 10 fortunes, 10 collapses. The pattern is the same every time. Wealth arrives fast, concentrates completely, builds a city that feels permanent, and then the single thing that created it ends, and everything built on top of it falls. The opera house is close. The stock exchanges are empty. The marble floors crack in the desert heat. And what's left is either a ruin, a tourist attraction, or a Superfund site. Sometimes all three. Drop a comment below which one surprised you most, and tell me, is there a rich town near you that people don't talk about anymore? Because I will find it and I will make it the next video. Subscribe, new story every single week.